And one of the biggest excuses that I used to make for myself and still do many times, and one of the excuses that I've heard expressed by many people before is that I'm just too busy. I've got too much going on. And yes, that's true for many of us. We do have a lot going on. Life is incredibly busy, but how you spend your time matters. When my wife and I started this school, I was still working full time and I was taking care of the administrative and bookkeeping stuff on the weekends and on the evenings. But because my wife is now working full time, and it was really more like two full time jobs to get the school started for the role that she was taking on. I took over all the housework, all the grocery shopping, all the laundry, everything. And I felt like there was no way that I was going to find that much time. But what I found was that God squeezed out a lot of fluff from my life that I didn't even know was there, that I didn't even recognize as fluff. A couple years later, when it became my turn to teach full time, and I still was working part time at my prior job during this transition, I thought all that fluff had already been burned away. I was stripped to the bone at this point, and I wasn't. Again, there were things in my life that God burned out and that were replaced by what he wanted me to do. And right now, 3, 4 years later, I feel the same way that I've got all that I can handle. But I know based on prior experiences that there's more fluff. There are more rough edges that can be knocked off. One time in the middle of all of this, when I was feeling particularly overwhelmed, I talked to my mom and asked her advice on how to handle all these competing priorities. And she told me what she's tried to do since before she started the school up in St. George, Utah, years and years ago. She said every day she wakes up and in her morning prayers asks God to tell her how he wants her to spend her time that day. In other words, let him populate her to-do list. And as she's done that, she's found herself magnified and she's found that the unimportant things just tend to fall aside. And I, over the past few years, have really tried hard to put that into practice. And one thing I've learned is that it's hard. And I find myself reading fewer and fewer entertainment novels and watching TV a whole lot less than I used to be. I spend a whole lot less time researching hobbies and things that I was interested in than I would have if I were just going off and doing what I wanted to do. And one thing I've learned about me from my life, and I think this probably applies to a lot of us, is that if we're too busy to do what's right, then we need to find what's wrong in our lives or what is not of eternal significance in our lives and cut it out.